You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact. Buy one, get one free. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we are watching The Next Phase. It was written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by David Carson, and first aired the week of 18th of May 1992. James, what is this one all about?
Geordi and Ro are killed in a transporter accident as the Enterprise tries to help a stranded Romulan vessel. But are they really dead? They're both still around, but no one can see them. Ro thinks she's a ghost, but Geordi thinks it would be weird to be dead and have a visor and clothes. However, he decides to keep them on anyway. Due to some weird Romulan science, it turns out they're actually cloaked, but a new kind which means they can pass through matter. Meanwhile, the Romulans are plotting to blow up the Enterprise for some reason, and only the ghost people know, and it'll blow as soon as they go to warp. Can they get solidified again before the Enterprise gets there? Or at least before Riker has to deliver a eulogy?
Alex, you had never seen this episode before. What did you make of it?
No, I hadn't, and I don't mind admitting that when I loaded up the disc and saw the screenshot that was being used to represent the episode, that I sent the two of you the Krusty the Clown meme of, what does that say? A Romulan episode? Oh god, these are always death. I was pleasantly surprised, therefore, that they were very minimal in the overall episode. It's pretty good. I suspect I feel less warmly to it than general fandom does. It's not that it's a bad thing, I just think I felt it was perhaps more slight in my mind than I suspect either of you two maybe do.
No, I think this is basically one of the best. This is a fairly standard episodes of TNG. It's just like, okay. It's not that deep. It's just like, oh, this is one you wouldn't skip on a rewatch ever. It's like, this is a good, solid episode of TNG. If you were making a list of episodes that are like, not exceptional, but very enjoyable, this is right up there. This and Conundrum and episodes like that is, yeah, this is decent. I enjoy this. This is essentially what the show is when it's at its normal level.
Workman-like.
The exact word that I was going to use, which you've just used, is standard. It's
basically
just a very
fine.
Well done standard. I mean, it's above basically fine. It is a really good episode, but it is standard Next Generation.
I found myself in watching it and enjoying it. I actually, had my undivided attention, but I did sort of, I got to it, and then when I was sitting down just now before recording, thinking about, right, so what was that episode about? And thinking, well, wasn't that much to it, really, was there? When I think about it.
But then, if you think back a couple of weeks, when we had Imaginary Friend, which is another. If the setup of this one is, what if you were invisible? That one is, what if Imaginary Friend became solid? That's another sort of basic Twilight Zone-ish concept, but done quite badly. Whereas this is done great. It feels like it's got a lot of texture, it's got a bit of scale, you have the Romulan ship, you have Romulan plotting, you've got nice model shots, you've got people walking through stuff, you've got kind of ideas about death, you've got a nice sequence between, one of those classic conversations between Data and Worf, where Data goes to Worf for advice and he's completely the wrong person. It's just a good concept, well executed, and that is all it is. But that is great.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's that element of observing your own funeral. That is the thing that keeps this going along. Looking back at it afterwards, some of the stuff with Ro and I think that we have died, and I think that this is us making amends, feels a bit more surface now when I think back on it than when I was watching it. There's not a huge amount there. And I mean, a part of that suffers from the problem of what we've said before about the audience being ahead of it. We know they're not dead. And perhaps by the end of that plot, with her saying, well, I guess we really weren't dead. Yes, we know. We knew that 40 minutes ago, but that's to be overly critical. I mean, overall, it moves along quite nicely.
I think they probably could have done something more with that, given almost Geordi a reason to doubt that he isn't a ghost.
Yes, you're never in any doubt.
And the more so the characters, Geordi certainly is never in any doubt that he's not really a ghost.
No.
I think he never really aligns to Ro's perspective, and maybe there could have been some event that made him think otherwise.
I guess there's not really time to get into that in too much depth. It kind of it hits all the beats at exactly the right point. But I agree. I think having the person who is very rational and scientific have to confront spirituality in some sense might have been quite interesting. But he's just like, no, let's just get on with the job. Let's solve the problem. Let's do the Star Trek thing. Let's work out what's going on here.
You can imagine that with someone else that might play out slightly differently. With, say, Riker, perhaps. That you can imagine that it could develop in that direction of, well, is this really death? That said, a Riker that's invisible, I can imagine all sort of pervy outcomes, so perhaps. You mean no one can see me? I'll be in the showers.
I guess, again, and this seems to be a weird conversation that we have in a lot of episodes now. It's like, what do you think of the choice of characters? We just had a Geordi episode in Iborg in the previous episode, and then they bring in Ro, and this is quite a meaty part, and you just think, oh, you're not going to give this to one of your regulars, you're going to give it to the guest star that you like, the recurring character that seems to get juicy bits more than, say, Troy or Crusher have had in the last season. So, but do you think these are good characters to experience this central premise?
I think Ensign Ro is kind of the perfect character, really. It wouldn't work with anybody else, the kind of spiritual side of it. Except maybe Worf, but I can't imagine what that would have ended up like.
I think it is sort of the unfortunate problem of the Next Generation in that you do have a few lame duck characters who you can't do a lot with. So they've brought in a new one who's a bit spiky and a bit more interesting. I agree, it works. It doesn't necessarily make sense that she's the one helping Geordi do the engineering stuff at the start, but you can let that go because basically all your bridge crew do all the things.
I think there's two elements that you need from the character in that role. One is the spiritual side, although I suppose you could layer that over various other characters who suddenly have a profound interest in Christ. But I think the other thing is that element of the spiky relationship with Picard and maybe some other crew, or even just a need to impress them, or if not impress, to that sense that they are in want of their praise. And really the only other character that suits isn't here anymore, and that's Wesley. And what a terrible episode that would have been.
I don't think they do enough with Picard in this episode in terms of potential grief, because he's very much a kind of mentor and sort of father figure to Ro, and they'll deal with that in other episodes. And even in Picard season 3, that was very much addressed. But here, Picard's fairly passive. It's the Riker element. Obviously, they had that flirtation and possibly slept together when they lost their memories in Conundrum, but Riker usually rides her pretty hard as an officer. So it's that's an interesting dynamic there.
Do you think it's a problem, though, that it is played for laughs?
I think the episode understands its own slightness. The whole we're invisible idea, it's quite silly. And I do think, it's giving Data a story. What if Data planned a funeral?
You let Data plan a funeral?
I think there are shades of sort of darkness and light in there. There are times when it's just like, are you kidding me? Just get on with the plot when they're going into 10 forward and they're going to blow up the disruptor and stuff like that, and they seem a bit casual, and they seem to kind of just be, well, we're not ghosts, we're going to solve this problem, and it's just like, yeah, take this a little bit more seriously. But I think a lot of it, either the direction or the script, like when they find the other Romulan out of phase, and he seems very unreasonable, doesn't he? Take me to your scientist, or I'll shoot you. And it's just like, just ask for help, dude. You know, you're all in the same challenging situation. In script writing terms, let's create an obstacle for them to kind of pad this out. But obviously it's well done and it feels fairly organic. Oh, it's an interesting reveal. There's also a Romulan who's a ghost.
Yeah, that added much needed threat to the episode. Aside from the fact that, you know, the Romulans are going to blow up the Enterprise. But that's just a ticking clock. There needed to be another element.
And I wasn't particularly clear on this, or I've forgotten since I watched it an hour ago. Why did they decide to blow up the Enterprise in case they discovered their research?
Yeah. They have this special cloaking device. Is it illegal, the cloaking device that they're building? Or am I getting it mixed up with the later episodes of Next Gen?
I don't think it is illegal at this point.
It was just experimental, wasn't it? Although I would say if you're testing it and then having to destroy the ship that you've tested it on to cover up the fact that you have it, testing it on the flagship of the Federation and then blowing up said flagship is probably not a great way of not drawing attention to yourself.
Were they intending on testing it on the Enterprise specifically, or was it that the device caused them to end up there?
Yeah, I don't think they were planning on bringing the Enterprise into it at all. I mean, I don't know where this episode takes place. Are they in the neutral zone? Are they in Federation space? What's going on here? Usually when it's Romulans, you're just like, you guys shouldn't be here. But let's not worry about that. That's not what it's about. They had the model and the makeup.
I think the insinuation is that the Romulans are far away from home, and it was because of the device that they are.
Fine. But I was going to say, when you have the baddie, like, again, that chase with Ro is played for laughs. Here's the woman coming out of the shower. Here's the man doing push-ups. The couple having a romantic relationship. And it's almost to say, you want to see someone naked, don't you? You want to see that?
Yeah, that sequence was
just
weird.
I feel like there's just it's this weird implication of like, yeah, we know we're a primetime syndication show, but you're not getting any of that in this, but it is. I guess it's just, here's the invasion of space and everyone's very wholesome in the future-ish.
It was the concession to when Gene had pitched the idea years ago. It was a far pervier affair. There's a reason that Bernard's watch involved a kid.
See, now you've said that, it does feel like there are a lot of kind of weird sitcom moments in this. Like, you could put a laugh track on it. Beverly protesting. It's like, have you done everything? Have you found them? And then it's like, Beverly, we have done everything in our power to find them. I just hate doing the admin of death certificates. Everyone laughs. It does. You're right. It is. There is a lot of moments of levity in the episode, but like, you know, TNG as sitcom, I don't think it's quite as sitcom in this one. It is one of its tones. It's having fun with the concept, I think, and I think it's played maybe a little lighter than written.
I mean, I wouldn't ever describe this episode as being funny.
But it does have funny bits in it.
I mean, so does Yogurt, but yeah, I don't think I'd ever describe it as funny. I can certainly pull out moments that are melancholic, but funny, less so. I mean, I can see the scenes that could nominally be passed as humour. I just wouldn't describe them as such.
It just tonally feels strange that in an episode where, from the perspective of most of the characters, 2 of our main crew have died. I get the idea that, you know, it's that Gene Roddenberry thing, isn't it, where everyone in the future is more advanced and they don't process things the way we do now. But it just, you know, I don't want to criticise the episode because I do like it, but it doesn't ever ring true that the characters are genuinely reacting to the deaths of Geordi and Ro.
Do you think it's maybe that they've done that before? Say in The Most Toys, when they thought Data had died, and they have that moment with Worf having to be promoted to take the role of someone else who had died again, and that's a nice scene, and they play that, I think, a lot more seriously than this. Do you think this episode is just like, well, we've played that tune before. Let's not repeat ourselves and let's do something a little bit different. And as we say, it's very good, but you can pick at it a little bit. It's just showing a different element of grief. Obviously, it's we're the military and we're dealing with a crisis situation immediately, and we've got to kind of get on with that. We'll maybe grieve later is kind of the idea.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that like there's the scene with Data and Worf. I think that's excellent. That is how it should be dealt with, and Data kind of learning about grief through this, almost, how to be human, how to grieve as part of it is learning how to be human. That element of it works really well. It is mainly just around Ensign Ro that I think the way that they play off her interactions with Riker as gags, that element of it, I just think it could have had maybe even not play it any different, but have maybe one extra scene at the end with Ro and Riker.
Or Picard.
That was the exact moment I was thinking of, because it was very much, right before they go into 10 forward, and she's going, what? And it's just like, he can't hear you, and the ship's about to explode. I think we need to maybe engage with the peril a little bit more. But it is that episode. It is slight, but fun. If you want to pick at the science, why do they not fall through the floors when they can go through the doors and things like
Don't go down that road. That's literally a point in the Nitpicker's Guide.
Well, yeah, and it's a boring point, isn't it? Because the answer is because they don't. Because it's a story about being invisible, and that would be really unhelpful. And if you really want to argue, you can go, well, the gravity net actually helps them stay there. Like, there's no point in asking questions like that, because there isn't a satisfactory answer, because they don't, is pretty much it. Again, it's a nitpick, and what is the value in a nitpick if you enjoy the thing and it works on a storytelling and character level?
Well, going by the book, the value of a nitpick is £7.99 in 1993. So allow for inflation.
I think in some cases you'd have to allow for deflation.
Is your book only until 93? Does that mean it doesn't cover the final season? You're panicking now that you're going to have to buy an updated version.
Yeah, the last episode it covers is Descent.
Yeah, that's the finale of season 6.
Jesus Christ. Another £1.50 down the drain. Just stepping back, it's a total side note, but just talking about that scene where Ro is being very earnest and sort of saying, I've come to make my peace, and going onto the bridge and saying to all the people that can't hear, I'm here to say goodbye. If I were Rob Grant and Doug Naylor liberally looking through Star Trek The Next Generation, working out what to rip off, that would be a great scene to do with Rimmer doing it, assuming that people can't hear him because he's dead, whereas in reality just no one wants to acknowledge him.
I thought you were going to suggest that maybe they took the mick out of that with his I've come to regard you as people I met speech. But of course that aired about a month before this episode did.
I hadn't even thought that, but you can pull out a few things. I mean, there's also the out of time, the four of us, all that stuff.
I kind of thought with that scene though, isn't it? It's quite funny that she goes to the bridge and it's just all the B team that are there. Yeah. And it's just like, who are they? There's not even anyone at the con. The person who's sitting at the helm gets up to chat to someone else, and you just think, well, no, this doesn't seem right at all. This is I've come to say goodbye to you. I was like, wait, who are you? Where's Worf? But yeah, it's heartfelt. It's got Ro obviously gets the heart, but I think Data also gets the emotional moments, if you want, and that gets the conclusion. I would say that only for me that the bum note of it is the final scene. which is just an original series kind of scene where Geordi makes a joke, which you almost feel like, do you laugh or do you report it to HR? I don't know. You can teach Ro humility. I didn't enjoy that. I don't enjoy ending on a laugh, I'll be honest. I think you're right. It should have been a sort of Riker scene.
Yeah, it does feel like a misstep, that.
That really is. I've just pulled up the line. We should develop our own interface device. If it can teach Romulan humility, it can do anything.
Police squad freeze frame.
What's the joke? You know?
You're like, oh, okay.
Right. She's a prick.
Yeah, that's like when they were calling Barclay broccoli. It's just,
it's just
you wouldn't expect that in the future, would you?
Intergalactic bullies.
Talking about the production type stuff, because we've talked about the episode. I love the power transfer effect, like a sort of transporter in space. Very sparkly. That's nice. The Romulan ship, I think, is the most Red Dwarf looking set we've ever seen in Star Trek. Yes. It's just like packing crates with light shining behind them. Hey, I've seen this. This is when you've got no money and you need to make a ship.
Keep turning that lighting down, boys.
That's fine. Like, it works. It's a space, and you've got that very silly scene where Worf can't lift a post. There's always a post that's collapsed that Worf has to lift. It's one of the things that he has to do is lift, but he needs Riker's help, and then it's easy to lift. Data closing the doors with his super strength. Little things to ratchet up the tension and create a little bit of peril in a scene, and then resolve in a fun way. As we said with the last episode, really good episode, and this is a good episode. The little bits of extra detail and character stuff and interplay and just actions that make it an above average episode, even though I will suggest it is an average episode.
I mean, all those things as well, probably worth saying, probably quite necessary to the overall tone. We might not find the episode funny, but without those moments, it would be quite a depressing dirge in places, wouldn't it? A lot of ruminating on death.
Well, yeah, they all just stop it from being an episode where people sit down on the floor and talk about being dead.
Yeah.
You know, it wants you to think about that issue slightly, but not really. It doesn't really want anyone to contemplate that too much, because we've got to get on with the plot. And here's the next thing that's going to cause an issue. Is the Romulan ship going to explode? Or are the Romulans plotting against them? Is the Enterprise going to explode? Is there a bad Romulan? Like, how will we get out of this? And again, very satisfying setup and payoff with the chronotons. They're going around, oh, there's a way we can get out of this, we can solve this problem. A literal sort of Chekhov's gun setup here as well. It's like, oh, here's the disruptor, this is how we're going to use this in the plot. Great. This is a sort of script you would show someone and go, this is how you do Star Trek Next Generation.
I do find it quite funny, though, that if you remove the Romulan element, the ticking clock of the episode is trying to keep Data engaged enough with the plot.
I was wondering as well, it's just, when did he have time to plan the funeral? He seemed to be kind of doing other stuff with that transporter chief lady.
He can multitask.
Absolutely. He does it well. I don't think I could plan a funeral and do my day job at the same time.
Plus, I mean, did he really plan that much? He just had a few people playing jazz.
Can I just say, one, Riker walks in and is like, I kind of like it. Where does the trombone come from? He just seems to pull it out of nowhere. And two, as someone who apparently plays the trombone, that is the worst fake trombone playing I have ever seen. I'm not even convinced that the sound he's playing along to is a trombone. Maybe it's a watching it in HD thing. I was sort of fixated on Riker just sliding that trombone slide up and down the most random ways. And I know they don't always have the music at the same time, so it's just like, well, play something.
Funny you actually mentioned watching this now in HD. I did have a thought while I was watching this that I've not had before, or certainly not in a very, very long time. Is this one of the episodes that has really been enhanced by being in HD? Because any time there is a special effect, I mean, if you think about Deep Space Nine, when there's a special effect, you know about 2 seconds before, because it suddenly drops down in quality. You know, it's like the Monty Python thing where it's switching from film to video. Whereas you don't really get that as much anymore while it's in HD.
I always think when they have these effects, because obviously Red Dwarf did so much doubling and they always did it so well, and you just think, yeah, they could do that better than Star Trek. But this actually, it's pretty good. Like, they're walking through things and that kind of effect. You don't feel like they're not there.
Yeah, they probably do it better than Red Dwarf did it in that sense. I know Red Dwarf only did it significantly a couple of times in the very first episode, but it was certainly better than that.
I understand that you can now walk through a bulkhead, but would you? Like, I'm just going to walk through this computer console. Just use the corridors now.
I was thinking about that. But I mean, I know he's the engineer. I know he's going to have a sort of vague sense of the geography of the ship, but surely you're not walking straight into the next room as he seems to be. Surely you're walking through a load of ship gubbins or into a lift shaft or...
Yeah, and how sure can you actually be that you're not going to walk out into space or something like that? And as you say, like they seem to have the same rules as people when it comes to flooring. So like, yeah, a lift shaft, highly dangerous. Don't even risk it.
To be honest, I wouldn't risk transporters after this. Ro Laren, she's in a transporter accident in this episode, and then in season 6 she's in another.
Well, at least at the end of this episode, she's thought that she's died, discovered that she hasn't, but has come to terms with the prospect of death and can now greet that, and fortunately, hasn't died and won't be killed off in a spin-off, like Hugh last week.
She could have been starring in a spin-off if she wanted. She was offered a main cast role in Deep Space Nine. She declined.
I mean, she basically is Deep Space Nine, and it always blows my mind because when she was introduced, she's the first Bajoran. Her episode introduced the Cardassians and that entire idea, and she was meant to be the first officer on Deep Space Nine, part that was retooled to be Major Kira, and it's amazing that she didn't do it in some ways because it's almost a show that's built around her character. Obviously, she wanted to do other things and would later return to Star Trek in Picard. Yeah, I mean, that's a sort of interesting story. And we said that in Conundrum, like they put her and O'Brien together to see what their dynamic might be like if they were going to spin off together. So, it's one of these great what ifs, and she very easily could have been in Voyager as well in a different capacity, as a Maquis crew member. Like, it does feel a lot of the kind of stuff her character's involved with is part of the bigger space of Star Trek.
But Michelle Forbes just didn't want that money.
I think she didn't want to get typecast in Star Trek.
That worked out well.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we go to Quickfire?
Quickfire.
I mentioned before that complaints about them falling through the floor, why doesn't that happen? That's addressed in the Nitpicker's Guide, which is beyond a bit of a nitpick. It's just being a bit of a twat. I do think, though, that as much as that is being a bit of a twat, it does go a bit further because it says, of course, the plot can't survive some of the other problems of being truly out of phase with normal matter. At the end of the show, LaForge comments that he hasn't eaten in 2 days. That makes sense. He couldn't pick up any food. Along the same lines, how can his lungs absorb normal oxygen? Would he and Ro suffocate shortly after being phased? And even if they didn't, how can they hear the conversations of other crew members? Hearing comes from the impact of waves on the air in the eardrum. Wouldn't the normal molecules pass right around their eardrums, leaving them deaf? I don't really know what to say about that.
I just don't want to engage with that. Yeah.
But should we try? Should we try something new? Seeing as I have the page open, trivia questions.
Good.
So many questions that we could address from this episode. Well, he's picked 2. One of them is just too dull to bother with, I think. But let's go with this one. What was displayed on Crusher's tabletop terminal when she was filling out LaForge and Ro's death certificates?
Was it a a bottle of creme de menthe?
It was her personal appointments calendar.
Oh, her Microsoft Teams.
That was certainly worth the $7.99.
I've just thought of a nitpick. Is this in Phil Farron's book? So, Geordi's visor works, but the communicators don't.
No.
He's going to have to do an updated version now.
This was intended to be a cost-cutting bottle show, but it ended up to be one of the most expensive of the season due to the special effects required. Michelle Forbes and LeVar Burton spent 2 long days filming the necessary blue screen sequences, which required many takes.
Brannon Braga did say that Troy was originally going to be in place of Ro, but they wanted to give Ro something to do, and he thinks it was worth it because she kicked a Romulan in the chest.
Ronald D. Moore added, "We were always trying to find ways to work Ro into our scripts. She was someone you could count on to bring spark into any scene and start up conflict with the other characters. That's the kind of thing a writer is always looking for. Per Troy."
Picard delivers a rare reference blooper in the script, saying Ro's troublesome incident occurred on Garan 4 instead of Garan 2. How embarrassing. Why do they have to have an aneurysm on the floor when they're phasing?
I think it's a reference to a Has Take On Me video. This episode will basically, I guess, inspire elements of this episode will be used into future episodes. Most notably, the Pegasus and Timescape, which kind of feel like companion pieces to this episode, I guess.
Yeah, Timescape is like this episode mixed with Bernard's Watch.
Susanna Thompson, who plays a Romulan in this episode, will go on to play the Borg Queen in Star Trek Voyager. But she's not as good as Alice Krieg.
She's the Bee Queen.
Hey, well, thank you for joining us for this episode. We will be back once again next time discussing The Inner Light. We hope you'll join us for that one, but until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Dear First Contact, there is a problem with the podcast.
There's many problems with the podcast.